Hello and welcome to Magical Travel Adventure. I am Lauren, your host, and today we are going to be talking about solo traveling with your kids or kid, depending on how you're going. So, a lot of times people want to do solo travel with their kids. Maybe their partner has to work. Maybe you are the sole parent and you have to travel with kids. So, this is some great options for you and just some tips and tricks depending on what kind of vacation you're doing. If you're new here, hello, I'm Lauren. I'm a travel advisor. I specialize in Disney destinations, cruising, Alaska, and all inclusive vacations. Basically, my goal is to get you family vacations that you can do for the rest of your life. Maybe you start off with that theme park vacation and then you move on to cruising, and then you're like, hey, we have older kids now, let's do some relaxing beach vacations. So there's all different types of vacations for families, and I help find whatever that vacation is that you need. The best part is that I really take care of all those details that you don't have time to because you're busy with all that other scheduling stuff with your kids. So let's get into that solo traveling with kids. So I do this a lot with my son. My husband cannot come with us, so I need to travel with him. I have a lot of clients who just travel with their kids because, again, I'm a teacher myself, so there's just some flexibility that you can take your kids when traveling. Now, if we're going to go to the theme parks, let's say we're going to Disney World or Universal Studios, the biggest thing is that you really have to think about the touring plans is going to be based around those kids. So let's say if you have one kid, that's, pretty easy, whatever they want to do, you focus the vacation around that. It's kind of important for that you include them in that vacation planning process, and maybe not where you're going to stay or things like that. Like, you can let them know getting on the plane, and then try and feel out, like, what is it that you're going to want to do? Like, what are those things that you want to do, so that you can make sure that those are the things that you're going to do during that vacation. The rides and the heights, that's another thing. So when I first took my son, he didn't hit a lot of the ride height requirements. So we focused on all the rides that don't have height requirements, which at Disney World, there are a lot. Universal Studios, there's not as many for kids. But if you look below in the show notes, I have some resources for you so you can see all the rides and the height requirements, so you can kind of see, what you'd want to do with your kids. Um, the biggest thing that you need to understand is if you have more than one kid is how you are going to maneuver certain parts. Like, if you're getting on a ride and if you have two kids and one of your older kid most likely is going to have to sit with someone else. So they're going to have to be okay with that, or they're going to have to sit alone. So, if they're that, 7-year-old, that can be harder for them, 7 to 9-year-old, that might be a little harder for them. So you have to have those conversations ahead of time to see if that's what they really want to do. Sometimes the rides that don't have the height requirements, the younger kids are okay with, or, your oldest kid is okay with riding it with someone else. Now, there are some rides that you can all ride together, like Small World, Peter Pan, Little Mermaid. There are some rides that you all can kind of like ride together, but it's those bigger rides you want to think about, like if you're going to do Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, or if you're going to do Space Mountain. I guess everyone has their own seat on Space Mountain. Or if you're going to do Guardians of the Galaxy, things like that. The other thing that you need to make sure is that if you have a younger kid, that they're going to be able to do the same height requirements. You can't like leave your younger kid and go ride with your older kid. So you need to make sure that you have a system already in place, or you've thought about that already. Like, maybe you say, like, look, this is a vacation, but it's just the three of us and we're going. So we can only do these rides because I can't leave like your little brother or sister so that we can ride those bigger rides. And, we'll do something else that's special just for you. Maybe they get to build a lightsaber. Maybe they get to build a droid instead. Maybe you take them to Cinderella's Royal Table. Like, whatever it is that you need to do, so that everyone feels like their voice is heard, that's gonna be helpful. Now, there might be a ride that your younger kid can ride, but they don't want to ride. And that can be challenging too. So you want to have those conversations again together. and see if maybe that person can ride it. As the younger person who was forced to do Splash Mountain, I did not like it as a child. I did not like doing any of the rides that I was forced to do. And it was hard waiting in the lines, knowing that I was going to do a ride that I didn't want to do, but because my mom couldn't leave me and my brother wanted to do it, we had to do it. So just know that you want to make sure everyone is okay with what you're going to do too. I will also say where you stay really matters. Now, if you're trying to go on a budget and things like that, definitely think that Pop Century is 100% the place that you should stay if you're staying at Disney World. If you are staying at Universal Studios, Cabana Bay is the way to go. If you want like nicer accommodations, if you want other things, then I would definitely look into the Modern Deluxe. It's really hard for me to give like blanketed advice for everyone, but I think that Pop Century is good for a lot of solo travelers, for parents. Even if you are just a solo traveler in general, Pop Century is a great option for a lot of families. This is probably the most popular resort on Disney property. You have access to that Skyliner, which just makes it a little easier. You're not always trying to get on a bus, things like that. So, Pop Century is a great option for you. Now, you also want to build in that rest time. So you think most of the time I think kids, they get up early and they're ready to go. Like 6 a.m. they're ready to go and the parks aren't even open. So I was just talking about that with some clients the other day. They're like, yeah, we don't have to worry about like early entry. Like we'll make that no problem. They're like, but I don't know how we're going to ever get to fireworks. So again, options here are that you go in the morning for as long as you can, and then I try and say like 2 o'clock, you come back and rest. And you rest and probably eat at the resort and then go back to the parks. So that way, you have that rest time, the kids get some downtime. It's not constant ride, or having to wait in line or things like that. Or if you have multiple kids arguing at that point, you have some separation time in there. So that is important. The other thing I will say is restaurants. You might want to eat at a lot of, table service, character dining restaurants. And I would say that, yes, you might want to do some during this time, but you also might not. Kids don't always want to eat a lot. So maybe doing more quick service and bringing in snacks. With my son, I bring him in food because I know it's going to be easier and I know he'll eat it. And he will eat some stuff in the parks, but sometimes he just gets that pickiness out of him, or he's just hot or tired, or like, I just don't want to deal with him eating like a bite of a chicken nugget and saying, like, I'm done. So just know about restaurants. Like, you can order food to your resort. I have done a video on that. If you need to know how to do that, you can look in the show notes below. But it's very manageable. Again, at Universal Studios, it's also manageable. I know I'm talking a lot about Disney, but a lot of times people aren't doing younger kids solo travel to Universal Studios. You're mostly going to Disney World. So just know that. The biggest thing is that you want to keep your kids in mind. Yes, you are taking them. Yes, you're going to Disney. There might be one thing that you're like, I absolutely want to do this, and you kids are just going to come with me, and that's fine. Try and do that earlier in the trip. And then, maybe it's just a short trip. Maybe it's a long weekend. You get the long weekend, your husband can't go, or you have time off and, your partner just can't make it. So, go. Or maybe they don't like Disney, so you're taking the kids without him or her, and it's just how it goes. So don't think that you can't do the short trip or with kids. The thing that you need to remember also is strollers. My son is 5. We still bring the stroller for him. He doesn't use it all the time, but as it gets later into the night, it is important. The hard part is if your 2 kids fall asleep in the stroller, you will have to get them out of the stroller on no matter what transportation you take them, boat, bus, Skyliner. The only way you would not need to take them out of if they're both sleeping in the stroller is if you're walking. So just be aware of that so that that might decide where you're going to do where you're going to stay. So a lot of times I have people stay at nicer resorts, at some of the deluxe resorts, because the kids are going to fall asleep and the parents then can go outside and watch the fireworks at night on their balcony. So just be aware there's all different types of options. It all depends on what you're trying to do. But those are some great tips if you're going to Disney World. Now, if you're going to cruise with kids alone, you do want to find one that has a good kids club. Now, most of the basic cruise lines, they all have good kids clubs. Obviously, Disney has the best kids club out there. So there's not going to be anything, that's going to top Disney. But a lot of the other cruise lines have it. Now, I even show a picture here because I don't think people realize that on certain cruise lines, the parents' bed is actually the one that's by the balcony, and the kids' bed is closer to the door. And a lot of parents, when they go on a cruise, they're concerned with the balcony. They don't want the balcony because they're too afraid the kids are going to somehow open the door and get outside. It's challenging to open the door. It's very heavy and things like that. But on Royal Caribbean, I do like it that as the parent, I'm the one by that door and the kids are over here. This turns it into a bed. So just remember that too. But you also might not want a balcony stateroom if you're with the two kids and you're like, I can't manage it. They're going to be climbing all over the place. I can't worry about them getting out. Then I would go for an ocean view or an inside stateroom. An inside stateroom might be small, even with two kids, just if you ever want some space. So just be aware of that too. So I would just say ocean view at that point. Now here, excursions normally have ages. So you will easily be able to see, like, can my kids do this? Things like that. You don't want like huge walking tours or things like that. You want to stick to like the fun stuff and things like that. You also want to look at the times. Is it going to be an 8-hour tour? Is that really going to be what you want to do with two kids? So just think about those excursions when you're doing it. Here, I would say you want to be a little more flexible with dining. Food is available at all times on the cruise ship. So if you don't want to go to the main dining at the time and you want to do the buffet, we often do just the buffet when we're cruising. Main dining just seems to take up a lot of time. It's too hard for kids to wait for food, or they just eat the appetizer and then they don't eat the regular food. And then I can't enjoy my food because it's just, when are we going to be done? I want to get out of here. And you don't have control over all that stuff, the regular stuff in your life. So having that time to just go to the buffet, everyone gets what they want. Who cares? Just eat it and sit down. Just be a little more flexible with that. That might be, just because the main dining is included doesn't mean that you need to go to it. The buffet is also included in your cruise fare. So just figure that out. In your stateroom, one of my biggest pet peeves is people who don't have kids are like, when I go on a cruise, I put all these hooks in my cruise room and it has all this stuff, and then I could keep all organized. And all I keep thinking, I'm like, you don't have kids, do you? Like, if I had things hanging on the walls on a cruise, all my kid would do is rip it down, which, yes, he's done every time. And he's a good kid. Jumping at it, trying to, like, the games that come out of hanging things with hooks on the wall. I actually don't recommend that at all. Look, you're on a cruise, you're on vacation, you're going to either be organized or not. I'm a very organized person. In a cruise, in a stateroom, I cannot be organized. I have the packing cubes, I have our stuff hung up, I have everything in the place it's supposed to be. And like 20 minutes later, it's like, where's this? Where's this? Where's this? So you do what you need to do. Okay. But the important stuff is we have lanyards that have our keys in them, and we hang them right at the door. That is helpful so that we know where it is. Every time we come in, we take it off, we put it there. Just make sure like that important stuff is there. Put your purse, put your wallet, whatever it is that you like, your phone just put it in one place every single time. I know that's super hard, but just know your stateroom's only so big and eventually you'll find it. I don't know how to do it. You can try and organize it the best you can. Your stateroom attendant will work around whatever you have, so don't worry about that. The biggest thing that I see families struggle with is that there aren't bathtubs on a lot of the cruise lines. There are actually, but they're in mini suites or above. So on Disney Cruise Line, a lot of people like that because the bathtub is included. It's not always a big bathtub, but it's a bathtub. So just know that, like, we, do creative things. It's normally a shower where the thing comes down. I don't know what it's called, the spout comes down, and you can hose off your kid if you need to. So you have those options too, but just don't think that you can't go on it. There's a lot of short cruises out there that are nice too, or longer cruises that you can go on too. But make sure that you try and have your kids go to the kids club. Even if they say they don't want to, just say, you know what, I need you to try it for an hour, just so you have that little break time. Maybe you just go back to your room and sleep. Who knows? But, they can try it for an hour a day. All right. So all inclusives. The biggest thing is you want to make sure it's kid friendly. If you're the adult and you're taking your kid, you want to make sure that they are going to feel comfortable. A lot of all inclusives have the shower in the middle of the room or the tub in the middle of the room, because it's really made for adults, all inclusive, but they say that they're kid friendly. So you really want to make sure that you pick the correct all inclusive for you and your kids. The other thing I will say is most all-inclusives are not in the United States. Some in the United States claim that they're all-inclusive, but they're not really. So in order to go to an all-inclusive, everyone in your party will need a passport. Even your kids, they can't use birth certificates if you're going out of the country. You need that passport. If you are in a situation where you have two parents that one is taking them, make sure you have the proper documentation because you are having your child leave the country. So for certain people in certain situations, you will need special documentation to take your kids out of the country with the other parent knowing that you're leaving. Make sure it has kids activities at these all-inclusives. Some say, again, that they are all-inclusive and they have stuff for kids when they really don't. There are, as more and more of my families want all-inclusives, I've had to learn more and more about them. And it's shocking to me that people don't realize that their kids, even though they say that they're kid friendly, they're really not, and they have nothing for kids to do. The good ones will have kids clubs that are trained in certain areas. So you really want to make sure that if you're going to that all-inclusive place, that they have stuff for kids. Again, very similar to all the other ones, but just, eat around the kids' schedule. Yes, there might be fancy restaurants that you really want to eat at, but is your kid going to eat there? Did you bring the right clothes for that kid? Is it worth it for you all to eat there? You have to kind of make those decisions as you're going, but just know that maybe you don't need all the fancy foods because you're with your kids. Again, rooms, I would go with basic here unless you're trying to get separation from your kid and you want your kids in one room and you in another room, then, go for that type of space. But for the most part, if it's just going to be you and one other kid or two other kids, just take the most basic room and then deal with it and just don't be in the room as much. The big thing with all-inclusive and even cruising, I would say, is see if there's other families that want to go too. Maybe you have a group of moms that all want to go together, but let's ditch the husbands or, the partners and let's just go and bring the kids and let's have fun because we can all easily get off and we're not dealing with our partner's schedules. And then you might want to include the kids in the process. My kid is a beach kid, but waves scare him. So all-inclusives that are so beach heavy for him, where he'd have to go into the water all the time, might not be as helpful for him. There might be other activities that I want to make sure that are there, because if he doesn't want to go at the beach, what are the other activities that are non-beach related that he can do? So I want to make sure that it's not all focused around the beach when we go, that you can go in the pool, that there might be games somewhere else that we can play, that there's an indoor space in case it rains and we don't want to just be in our room. So those are all things that, you kind of want to look at when you're doing this. So, wow, that was a lot of talking. So that is my all my tips for different types of things when you're looking at solo travel with your kids. I will say I find it a little easier to do solo travel. It's just like one less person to have to I don't want to say worry about because my husband's an adult and he can, he helps me when we travel. But like when it's my son and myself, it's very easy for me to travel. I really enjoy it. We have a lot of fun and it's just kind of go with the flow. So it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it if you can do it. And if you have to do it, then, see what you can do, but take advantage of those kids clubs. Make sure that, you get some time for yourself so that you can just have a little breather. So, all right. If you have questions, please let me know below, and I will see you next time on Magical Travel Adventure. Bye.